Welcome to the third episode of our new series of Atlassian Presents Leading the Change. In this series, we'll talk with transformation leaders about industry trends, best practices, and tips for combining stability with being dynamic to increase productivity, better respond and adapt to customer needs, and empowering teams to survive and thrive in today's world. My name is Jeff Keyes. I am the head of product marketing for Atlassian Enterprise Agility, and I'm your host for this series. We have very special guests today. We have CK from Accenture, and welcome Alexis William, our global head of strategic alliances. Welcome. Tell us, welcome you both. Tell us why you're here today. What brings you here? Why is this interesting?
Yeah, well, I'll start. So any morning that we get to spend with you, Jeff, that's just amazing. But yeah, we're here. We're super excited about the expanded partnership between Atlassian and Accenture. We think we're bringing some deep expertise when it comes to helping companies unlock true enterprise agility. And, that's the headline. It may be a bit buzzwordy, but at the heart of it, you have Accenture, whose corporate mission is to deliver on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. On the Atlassian side, to unleash the potential of every team. So naturally, there's just a very strong cultural fit there with, two symbiotic missions. You take that goodness and you throw it into the mission for the partnership itself, which is really just help our customers unlock true enterprise agility. And so we're here to talk about that. That's what we're passionate about. That's what we love to do. That's what we love to help our clients navigate through. And we're really excited to be here.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that, right? If I take a look from an Accenture perspective, we are externally recognized as the leading digital transformation company in the world, the leading product engineering company in the world in terms of services. We're externally recognized as the leading cloud services provider to help folks move to the cloud. Both Alexis and I are at ReInvent right now, right? And we have leading class capabilities in Agile transformation and in the talent and organizational change that all the companies that we work with collectively are going through. So for us, it's a match made in heaven because Atlassian has the leading class tools that enable that. So that's why we're super passionate to be here with you, Jeff.
I love it. I love it. Love it. I love also that you're at reInvent right now because you're able to meet with folks and customers. Just a note to our audience, this is not a webinar. We're live. The goal here is ask questions. We're here to interact, take your questions. If you look over to the side, feel free to ask your questions and we'll pick from those and present them to our guests and answer them as we go. Back to reInvent. That's a huge conference and lots of customers. What's the vibe? What are you hearing? What are people struggling with?
I'll take this one to start, CK. But I mean, first of all, it's awesome. The numbers are getting back to what they were pre-COVID. The last reInvent before COVID hit, it was like 80,000 people. So there's about 50,000 people plus here. It's very buzzy. The energy is palpable. It's super exciting. And I think, just from the human side of it, though, there's also this sort of underpinning of, uncertain market conditions. And there's a lot of companies that have gone through really tough things, layoffs and just fallen soldiers, losing teammates, things like that. So I think that there's great camaraderie and team building, but there's also some of the, stark realities that we're faced with. I think from a technology perspective, we're sort of in the phase of Cloud 2.0. Cloud 1.0 was all about future-proofing the infrastructure, right? And so 5 years ago, that's all we talked about, future-proofing architecture. Cloud 2.0, now we're starting to talk about future-proofing our business. And so it's how do we use the cloud to unlock innovation for new business models, new channels, really really using the cloud to leverage innovation for the business. So it's super exciting, and there's just we're having some.
I got to jump in because you're right.
I know.
Alexis and I have been talking about this and sparring about it all week long. This Cloud 2.0, I'll go there a bit. We're what are we, 10, 12 years into cloud, right? And everybody's looking for all the outcomes and the promises of what cloud delivers. And of course they're there. At the same time, we're 10, 12, 15 years on the agility journey for most companies. And so
Yep.
we're sort of at this point where a point in time, given the conditions in the market, where people are looking at like, what's the outcome that I'm getting from these things that I'm doing in my organization? And I think we're at this moment in time where leaders are really pushing on, how do I drive the outcome and the promise that the industry has been talking about for years and years and years, and not how do I drive that at a team level, some people, way down in my organization that I don't even engage with. It's actually
Right.
how do I drive that to transform my business, right? And that's a big reason why Accenture is here in force, and a big reason for what we're doing together.
I love it. Especially as people are shifting from, everything was just, I could go faster. And then, well, pandemic blew everything up. And now we have economic downturn. So interesting that cloud 2.0 and future proofing. Along those lines, when you have executives come and talk to you and they say, well, I've got to be more agile, what are some of the wrong questions they ask around being more future proof?
Oh my God, the best one ever is how do I be like company X? Like I've been doing this for 10, 12 years within Accenture, helping product engineering organizations and IT organizations get better at their craft. Everything from product strategy through to engineering and engineering productivity and what that means. And I've heard that over and over and over again. How do I be like whatever company is on, the cover of Wired magazine or Fast Companies? And that's such a myth. It's like we were actually talking about this last night with some folks, which was, well, it's actually how do you be the best you? Yeah, you can go out. You can look at all of these other things that others have done, right? You can take license from that, but following the tails lights of some other company is, I think we're finally starting to get out of that mode. I thought for 10 years that's all anybody wanted to talk about was who was ever on the cover of Wired magazine. I'm hoping that we're getting beyond that and moving into how do I become the best version of me.
I love it. Alexis, as you see people asking questions along those lines of trying to transform themselves, what's some of the fear that you're seeing with them and how they're managing these downturns? What are they coming to you asking about along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. CK and I we were sparring yesterday, as we do, work spouses. Am I right?
Damn straight.
And yeah, he was on me a little bit on metrics that matter. And I think that when we look at enterprise agility, and there's a lot of fear that they're going to be focused on the wrong OKRs. And so I think there's a desire there. There's a want to really put in the right OKRs for the business, but there's also some trepidation and fear around not really being able to understand what the right ones are. And so we get into this conversation around, focusing on the metrics that do matter. And it's challenging. I would say, like OKRs are huge, big, I think, indicator, trigger point, as we like to call them, in a customer's journey to enterprise agility.
Gotcha.
And I think a big thing in that is back to the wrong question to answer kind of thing is when folks are asking, well, how do I make my teams more efficient or more productive? It's like, actually, no, as a leader, you need to look at you and your leadership group and say, how am I enabling my organization, including myself and my leadership group, to actually truly be agile, as opposed to saying, oh, well, all those things that you're talking about, from goal setting like OKRs to lean portfolio management to whatever the capabilities are, that's for the teams to do. That's for the people that are 4 levels down in the organization. It's actually, no, you got to actually look at yourself and your leadership teams and how you're enabling that amongst your teams.
I love it. Feel free to continue rolling questions in. One of the questions we have is kind of a funny one, right? If you didn't come from this industry and you heard the term transformation, you would think we were talking about some kind of, Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of movie, or didn't know where you were coming from. But agility is another word. It's like, what the crap is that? There's a question that says, what does agility really mean to the enterprise? And what are the outcomes to keep in mind in this journey?
Yeah, that's a really good one, because CK and I talk all the time about there is a difference between saying you do Agile and then actually enabling true enterprise agility across an entire organization that spans outside of just IT. I think there's a lot of components of, when it comes to enterprise agility, just lack of organizational wide visibility and lack of, sort of senior leadership that hamper the cultural shift required to really do true enterprise agility. And I think from that perspective, like, there is a big component of the human element of change in that. And CK, I'll let you expand a little bit on the agility side, but yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
So I think it's about, and I love that that you asked this question, because we tend to, in this industry, get really over-rotated on buzzwords, right? And then the latest buzzword of the day. So when I think about something like agility, what I'm thinking about is, how do you make the right decisions fast enough to enable your teams and therefore your company and your strategic priorities to hit the market at the right time, or like not being behind because you can't make decisions fast enough, or not being behind because you cannot figure out like your technology stack or how your teams work, or having the decisions at the right place in the organization with the right data. That's agility. It's not just doing things fast. Like, we've already gone through the world of, oh, it has to be faster, and faster's better. Faster's not always better. The right speed, the right clock speed with the right decision making for your industry is what matters.
Yeah, I would say we're not in the business to do shitty things really fast, right? And I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this. But yeah, I mean, I think the other piece of it is just like, you look at companies that are 100+ years old and standing the test of time. Like, when people say unicorn, I think a unicorn is a 100+ company. Like, there's only 5% of companies that have lasted longer than 100 years. In order for them to do that, they've had to go through incredible innovation, and they've had to like redefine themselves time and time again. And I think that like this goes to a lot of that as well, as leaders asking, do we want to be that 100+ year company? Do we want to survive that long? And if so, we need to be innovating. We need to be doing it in an agile way.
Yeah. Well, and there's, significant pivots. What was it like? Barnes and Noble closed down their online store the same year that Amazon started. The creation of the digital camera, you would have thought would have been, a different company than actually ended up with it. So the world is continuously changing, and being able to react to that is pretty good. There's a second part to this question, though, that I think is interesting. What is it that people, how do you know that you're more agile? And given your definition, CK, of being able to react, how do you end up actually measuring yourself on how you're doing from a business agility?
So that's a really good one. And I think I'll use a product example, but it is the exact same thing for me in an IT organization or another technology, any kind of technology driven organization. If you can consistently get at bats and score when you have at bats, that's your marker. Like, one hit wonders, using a music reference, one hit wonders are all over the place. You have companies that went from 0 to 100,000 foot, right? And then within a span of 5 to 10 years, and then have come down to, back down to 50 feet. Why? Because the second or third at bat that they needed to reinvent, to evolve their business, they weren't agile enough to get there. You have IT organizations in the same way, right? One big program, they put in SAP, they nailed it, right? And then they couldn't repeat it in putting out, their human capital management system. So it's a consistency of getting up, being at bat. Sorry for the baseball reference, right? But getting hits all the time is that how I sort of see it.
Yeah. And I think like just looking at sort of the maturity curve of enterprise agility, like you start with team agility, you move into program agility, you move into portfolio agility, you're finally at enterprise agility where you have that shift from operational to outcome driven. You have enterprise wide transparency and goal setting. You're aligning the people, the work, the value. So I think that like if you want to get a sense of what the North Star is, like that's really what we're trying to get after here with our clients.
I love it. And you both are dealing with some of the largest, most complex software companies in the world. I remember as one company I met with was kind of belaboring the point of, how many developers do you have? Well, we got, Atlassian, I think we've got about, 4,000, 5,000. And the response was, well, we got more than 10 times that. And imagine, and then legacy and the things you deal with of dealing with all the legacy products that are out there. Business agility is often related and equated to implementing Agile and Scrum practices across a large organization. There's a question from Latha that asks, hey, what are the best strategies for implementing Agile and Scrum? And let me add to that by saying, hey, when you have an executive come and say, okay, we're going to implement, Agile Scrum, how do we do it? What's the answer you give?
I think the first answer is, and this may be controversial for a lot of people, and I'm saying this live, to get to first principles. A lot of times, because we're so buzzword driven in this business, we go, oh, I need to accept something like it's a dogmatic religion, whether that is Scrum, whether it's that safe, etc. It's like, what are the first principles of what we're trying to do here? Are we trying to drive decision making at the right place in the organization? Hell yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Are we trying to give teams autonomy to self-organize and go solve problems? Yes, we're trying to do that. Are we trying to use some things that are proven ways of having repeatable outcome-driven work? Yes, we're trying to do that. There's multiple different flavors for doing that, right? But it doesn't have to be fully accepted as a dogmatic religion. It is get to the principles and build from those principles. That's always my first view of this conversation.
Yeah. Agreed.
I love it. Well, and it sounds like, Alexis, you brought up the culture discussion because it sounds like there's more than just getting people trained on a methodology. It seems like there's more to, there's decision making happening in different places. Almost feels like maybe this is the wrong question of ask. Ask like, how do I implement Scrum? It's like, well, maybe it's more about something else. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's about when we really look at the human side of it, like what we're trying to do is fundamentally change the way that people and teams work together. And that is just, there's a lot that goes into that. There's psychological safety. There's a lot of fear that like, oh, if we change, what does that mean? What's the implication there? And so I think from that perspective, like, we talk about it a lot too in the partnership. It's a mindset shift. That's my word that got me stuck here today, Jeff.
Well, I got stuck on one earlier. All good. Well, and what is that?
Let me add something to that, though,
Please.
team. This is really important. So at least I think it's important. We'll see if anybody else does. There's this other component to it that is, and I don't know where I got this from. I think that I made it up, but I probably got it from somebody else. This idea of like architecture follows architecture. Mm-hmm. When you go down this path and you're trying to be more quote unquote agile, you're trying to achieve enterprise agility, you actually have to start with a bunch of things. I have the architecture of my technology. I have the architecture of my teams, the architecture that follows that architecture. And when you start breaking things apart and you start saying, well, gosh, what do I want? I want autonomous teams that can make decisions for like 80% of their work and have a good escalation path when, the 20% that they can't make those decisions on. It sort of follows the same analogy as cloud. Anybody who's done anything in cloud says that if you just lift and shift your old stuff onto a cloud provider, you're not going to get the outcome. If you re-platform it and you start being, I guess the buzzword is cloud native, you start tearing apart things. And when you start tearing apart those things, you get to a service orientation. You have to make things decoupled. The mythology is that you can do that without having good guardrails. Every single good cloud migration where you're actually replatforming and taking things apart into constituent components, they follow a service level objective. They've put guardrails around things so that they can be loosely coupled. That's the key of this whole enterprise agility thing, is that if you're going to go down that path and go from teams doing Agile and Scrum and ceremonies to an actual Agile organization, you have to follow that same path. You have to decouple things. You have to put guardrails around things like goal setting, or how you do portfolio management, or how you're going to do dependency management. It's not process less, right? It's actually process in the system that makes it easy. I think Pat Copeland said it right, that makes it easy to do the right things and hard to do the wrong things. And by the way, he learned that fixing a lot of things that they did way back in the day at Google.
Well, and I'll caveat one thing you said, CK. So loosely coupled, tightly principled. I think
100%.
I love it. I love it. So, I mean, just to be really obnoxious though, so this two-part question, how many times have you had an executive come to you and say, so you want me to have small autonomous teams that are driving the ship? And then, the second part of it is like, well, how in the world will I know what they're doing and if they're doing the right thing?
So there's the rub, right? That is people going down a direction and thinking that I can start just following this path without doing the hard work to understand what are the systems that create that visibility and accountability in how we're doing the work. Like you can't, it's sort of like saying, well, I want a really, really nice bathroom in my house and a really, really nice kitchen, without thinking about the plumbing that connects those things, or the electric, like the systems that support that. Like autonomous teams in little loosely coupled organizations with no guardrails. I think Alexis just said it. That leads to delivering a lot of stuff, maybe not the right stuff. You might be able to do it faster, but are you delivering the outcomes that you want? Or is it agile theater? And in a lot of cases, we end up having these discussions and you look at it and you say, wow, this is agile theater. We're going through all the ceremonies, but we have a gold-plated toilet, but no plumbing.
Great analogy. Hey, there's a question from your experience of driving and influencing transformations. What helps to to speed up the engagement and buy-in, top down or bottoms up?
This one is juicy. Right?
Get it.
There's definitely, I think from an Atlassian perspective, like what we've seen as a company is just like from a product adoption standpoint, it's been very bottoms up, right? And so we have a very like natural sales cycle for bottoms up. We're starting with the Accenture partnership to go top down. But I think what's missing in that question is also the frozen middle. And I think like that piece is also incredibly important. It's not one or the other, it's an and of all of it. But you need all of the streams working together in tandem. And I wouldn't say that it's one, but it is an and.
And I think you have to get to a point where you're meeting the champions who are driving bottom up, because literally in every organization you have some champion that's saying, hey, listen, we need to be doing things a little differently. The challenge is they're having a very, very hard time with the senior leaders in the organization who also know that things need to be done differently, but they don't know how. And these people typically don't speak the same language. Right? The leaders are saying, how do I drive profitability? How do I drive market growth? How do I drive efficiency? By the way, in 15 years, finally, we're starting to talk about efficiency in companies. Wow. But they speak a very sort of CFO corporate speak, right? Whereas the champions who are trying to drive this change are speaking, at least for the last 10 years or so, really more of a team level enablement speak. And then sometimes HR comes in and says, well, how about the human side of this? And other champions do that. You got to put all of that together. right? You got to create an environment where senior leaders can match those goals and objectives that they care about, and can see that in these teams that are doing the work on the ground. And if you don't have that infrastructure, it's like spreadsheets. It's spreadsheets and PowerPoints. And how is anybody going to trust, 5-week delayed progress spreadsheets and PowerPoints when you're trying to drive an organization forward to capture market growth, or in some cases to survive and thrive in your industry?
Yeah, and it's not just the vertical part of the axis, right? If we look at the horizontal side, it's also how are you getting a business leader to talk to an IT leader saying the same thing, speaking the same language. That is that's also, I think, super critical to be able to look at doing with customers, because otherwise people are not saying the same things, and that is a miss.
Yeah. I guess another piece of advice I'd throw into this mix too is, no matter what you're doing, if you're at the top looking down trying to figure this out, or if you're in the middle, or if you're in the bottom, one thing that is clear is that you don't have enough time to have a voice that is loud enough across your organization to get everybody aligned. And there's such power in having a partner like Accenture that can come in and help you in this journey. If nothing else, even if everybody gets it, if nothing else, just to help people understand what in the world you're trying to get happening. Just a couple more. We got way too many questions. This is great. How does agility change the psychological aspects of employees' culture in a large scale?
Oh gosh, that's an awesome one. The psychological aspects. Well, I've seen two paths. I'll talk about two paths. There's probably 20 others. One path is that you have leaders who actually recognize what we've been talking about, that this thing is not just something that a team does. This is something that the organization has to adopt. In that case, your psychological safety goes up in an organization, because people feel empowered, and they also feel empowered that it's okay to make some mistakes and that we're going to learn as we go, and that's okay, right? Another path that I've seen is that leaders, they sort of nod and wink and say, okay, we'll accept that these other people are doing this thing, and they don't embrace it. And then at some point, they either kibosh the thing, which then everybody then goes back in and says, well, that sucks. What do we do now? Right. And it becomes a thing where I'm not going to bring something new and innovative in because we try and then we get kiboshed on it. Or the leaders work around it. Like the team spend all of this time getting the infrastructure together, prioritizing, doing everything that we say is the right thing to do. And then the leaders come over the top because they don't understand it, and they kibosh it in a different way. And so then the second you start doing that, if you don't let it actually start working and take the hits where you need to, you basically squash the desire of anybody inside your organization to continue to make the change. That's what I've seen.
Third component of that is just the overall employee happiness, right? When you are operating in an agile fashion, you're being more innovative, people are getting more say, people are doing more of the things that they want to be doing. You have happier employees, you have happier teams, you have more productive teams. Teams like to be productive. Like fundamentally, we're humans. That is something that we gravitate towards. So I think from a psychological standpoint, you're getting just happier, more productive people.
If you're supported. If you're on the non-happy path, you're getting people who are like going, holy moly, can I get off this hamster wheel of agile theater, right? There's both sides of that. And that's the key that we've been talking about, that middle support and that leadership support for truly embracing, soup to nuts, north, south, east, west, enterprise agility, not just something that the teams are down there doing.
Yeah. Well, and truly, if the teams are doing well, there's a mindset and a culture of experimentation, not success or fail.
Right.
And, failures are just learnings, and, don't take that path again, and we'll be just fine.
Failures are awesome. Let's just fail fast. Let's not.
Exactly.
Fail, but
that's exactly the point. This has been a wonderful session. Thank you to you both. How would folks here get in touch with you if they have more questions?
Well, they can hook up with us on LinkedIn, clearly, and Yeah, I'd just hook up with us on LinkedIn and we'll answer any of it, and we're happy to have discussions with anybody.
And you happen to be at an event this week, if you happen to be at reInvent?
That's right. If we're here, look us up, connect with us, and we're happy to come have a one-on-one scrum on this topic with anybody who wants to.
I love it. I love it. Thank you to you both for your insights and your vision, and just appreciate your thoughts and expertise. I hope our audience realizes this is a hard journey that we're all on together to, really make every company be a software company, and efficiency, culture, all the aspects of being able to react and to maximize our at bats. I love that analogy. I think that's fantastic. So with that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you to you both, and we will see you next time.